There is such a high vibe in the house today because I have the exuberant Phil Januszewski on the show. Phil makes the word charisma look like child's play with his larger than life personality. He is all in on everything he does, his beautiful family, his career as a chemistry and physics teacher, those lucky, lucky kids. I wish my kids could have had a teacher like you, and his role as a vibrant professional public speaker. He's all about paying it forward and making others feel uplifted and empowered. And when he offers you a ride, don't be surprised if he pulls up in a limo. He is covered in tattoos. He's known to favor a mohawk. He loves to bake. And when he bakes, he doesn't just bake, he bakes on Netflix. He's one of those magnetic people whose super high frequency is contagious. And when it comes to positivity and glorious intentions, he is Mr. Go Big or Go Home. Welcome, Phil.
Mitzi, thank you so much. All that is fully received. And man, I'm feeling the energy. I'm ready to go. Let's have a great conversation and hopefully change some lives.
Yes, let's do it. So I thought we would start out with some of the W's with you so that we can get some insight into how you became this person that you are, this vibrant, amazing giver, generous person that you are. So can you just tell us when and where were you born and a little bit about your family?
Yeah, absolutely. I've always grown up in the Chicagoland area. So I was born outside of Chicago, about 30 minutes in the suburbs. It's called Tinley Park. And I was born to a great family. My mother, Joyce, my father, Al, and I have an older sister, 3 years older than me, my sister, Lisa. Very supportive family. We grew up middle class area. Father, super hardworking. Mother, we was lucky enough to have her stay home with us while we were really little. And then she went back to work when we went back to school. So family and support has been a consistent theme throughout my life, including now when I'm 40 years old. When this podcast comes out, I'm going to text it to my mom and dad, and they'll probably listen and be like, hey, that was really good. You know, they're very encouraging still, even though I'm a grown man. But that theme of love, support, and hard work has always been there. And I grew up very lucky, very close to my mother. She's an extremely positive human, looks on the bright side of things, and has a lot of love and energy for life and people. So I think I inherited that charisma, that energy, and just that genuine, sincere joy of interacting with others from her. And then I've got that, work is important. You have to provide for your family. When you do a job, you do it well. You do it all in to the best of your ability because people deserve that from you. I got that from my father, and I just kind of became this blender, this emulsification of both of them. And I found that the more that I was like both of them in those areas, the more I thrived, the more I felt like I positively impacted people around me. And I've just been doubling down on that my whole life, and to the point where it seems like I've had a great career as an educator, allowing myself to be that excited, hardworking, but really genuinely loving human. And I don't know, it's served me well all these years. So did I answer that question okay?
Oh, you answered it beautifully. It really does make a difference when you have that kind of a foundation, for sure. So you're very lucky. I also had a similar upbringing. I feel like that does set you up for success. And it's kind of a rarity these days, right?
Oh, Mitzi, we were reflecting. I have a good group of friends from elementary school, went to junior high, high school. A lot of us even went to college together, which is very rare, Mitzi. But out of all of our friends, I think all of our friends' parents stayed married throughout. I knew them well. When we hung out, we weren't like sneaking away, trying to get drunk. We would literally hang at our friend's house at like the kitchen table, and Ryan's mom would come and bring us snacks. It was like this fake Leave It to Beaver life of just, I was very lucky to grow up in the environment, and I am fully aware that not everybody, and see, like you said, you got that same loving support. Not everybody gets that, but that really set me up for success in so many ways. Just how I look at myself and everything. So yeah, gratitude comes to mind immediately when I think of growing up and just the other humans, the other adults that helped raise me, all my friends' parents, just super lucky.
I think it's a great message, even for people who did not grow up that way, just to know that it's never too late. You can set that foundation going forward because it really makes a difference.
So different. I mean, my wife and I are super intentional about family time. Well, I love to cook, so we have dinner 5:15 every night, as long as, most days. And just being together, no technology, hanging out, laughing, joking, talking about the day, lifting each other up. I mean, that's such an important part of our day and something that fills me up. But I'm hoping that my kids get that same exact springboard to be able to hopefully pass that on and bring that to other people.
I have no doubt they will. Tell us about your very first thing that you remember in your life. What is your very first memory?
Man, I think going back, my grandparents had this little house by a lake in Indiana. And I remember being on some kind of, where you're like on a little bike or whatever, but you're just moving with your feet, like a little plastic one. And I remember going across these wood circle stones. And I remember it had a little hill, and I was looking back, and I remember seeing my mom. And I think she was there watching me kind of play in that. So I think that's my absolute very first oldest memory I can think of. But we used to visit her parents a lot, and they were outdoors a lot. And I know that was like their happy place, my mom and dad, and they were with all of my father's brother and sister-in-laws, all my mom's brothers and sisters. And I think they had a really good time. And I felt that energy even when I was super little.
Mhm. That's significant. I think the early memory says a lot about what's important to you. And obviously that one, it is a metaphor for everything you just told us about your early life. So it's
No,
beautiful.
I'm definitely a mama's boy, so totally makes sense.
That's okay. I have a mama's boy, so I like being that mama. Sure, your
I
mom
love
does
that.
too.
I love that.
I'm wondering if baking and cooking was a part of your early life in your childhood with your family.
Oh my gosh. Well, Mitzi, I don't know how your family was, but food basically was what everything revolved around. If we were celebrating, we were eating. If it was a holiday, we were eating. If we were sad, I was eating. If we were mourning the loss of someone, we'd come together and eat. So
Mhm.
food is a very big and important part of our culture. Probably, probably in an unhealthy way to a certain extent, because I still love to eat and I got to keep myself in check for that. But my mother is an excellent cook. My father is an excellent cook. My father's parents, my granny and papa, I called them, they were outstanding cooks. We watched Food Network a lot. We would create new things. My grandfather was a cook and baker in the Korean War in the army and would make these beautiful braided loaves of bread. And my granny was like a MacGyver cook. She could just take anything in the fridge and turn it into something when you'd visit. And I just remember I would just sit there and kind of hang out with them at like the breakfast bar while they were cooking, and I would take it in and learn. And then they'd say, my mom would say, here, grab that onion and a knife, go chop this for me while I'm making chicken soup or whatever. So I was always in the kitchen. Food was always an important part of our life. And at an early age, I thought for sure that I wanted to go to culinary school, become an executive
Mm.
chef, own a restaurant one day, maybe with family. And so I really dove down on that. Santa brought me a Cooking for Dummies book one year. I got cookbooks for Christmas and birthdays. I would cook a lot. So food is a humongous part of my life. And funny story, Mitzi, side note, without cooking, I'm not sure if I would be married. I think I got to my wife's heart through her stomach. I met her and then I made her my apple pie. And I think that's when I finally caught her attention. So
That's very romantic. I've never had a man bake me an apple pie. So that you just set the bar very, very high right there,
well,
Phil.
she was a good one, and I wanted to make sure that she knew I'm pretty decent too.
It's so sweet. So what about the teen years? When you moved into your teenage years, how was that time for you?
Yeah, for me, once again, a sense of gratitude. Overwhelmingly, I loved school. I had a really, like I said, really nice group of friends. We were making good decisions. I was involved in sports in the Chicagoland area. I don't know, and everywhere that might not be big, but boys volleyball is really big in the Chicagoland area. So I played volleyball all 4 years of high school. I got to be captain 3 of those 4 years. I was involved in a this thing called the variety show, which actually changed my life dramatically. They get a live professional band of grown adults, live music, and then you put on a show and you try out to like basically karaoke with a live band. And then behind you are students that have choreographed dances. So it's like this rock show. And my sister did it. Thank goodness. She was a great influence on me. And I saw it and I said, I want to be on that stage. So I tried out. And anyways, long story short, they put a microphone in my hand. I realized, man, I like attention, and no one would ever deny that. I love attention, Mitzi, sometimes to a fault, working on that. And then I just love the people who ran it taught me how to public speak, how to enunciate, how to give energy. And I loved music, and I didn't know how to dance, and they taught me how to dance. So anyways, my confidence in myself skyrocketed because of those 4 years of being a part of this, plus the discipline of sports, plus having parents that supported me. I mean, I was on this exponential growth trajectory. I was at a great school where my teachers were supportive and encouraged me. I mean, like if you wanted to draw out a picture of like a kid lucky that just had all these opportunities, I mean, that was me. It was just laid out for me. So, and I know that not everybody gets that. So again, I'm trying my best to make sure I can give as much to the world because it's given so much to me.
I love that you have this gratitude around that. You must have done something right in a past life, I'll tell you.
Or maybe really bad, and now I need to make up for it, Mitzi.
Who knows? Who knows? So you're talking about all of these great things, and I'm wondering, is there anything in your story where you formed some kind of a limiting belief or you sustained a wound of some kind? Is it all roses?
No, but I must admit, it's hard to think of the struggles because I've focused so much on, the gratitude and great. But I would think that my biggest struggle personally, and I would say even to this age, is like my self-body image for sure. I was heftier. If you know Mr. Jeff Forrester, we both talk about it. We were chunkier kids in junior.
Husky is the word.
Husky is what my mother used. In fact, I had the stretchy jeans that from J.C. Penney that were the husky size. And I remember as I started being more self-aware, probably like 6th, 7th grade, I realized, oh man, I'm not really that in great of shape. I'm pretty round. And I remember being self-conscious about that. And I remember wanting to feel different and to feel more powerful. So I have a very supportive family. I also, because of sports, had good role models of coaches that said, oh, here's the things you want to do if you want to improve. So I really got into exercise and activity and fitness. And then I really, really got into it my junior, senior year. I took a class called strength and conditioning, and I never was a guy who worked out in a gym before then. I didn't really know about it. And it changed my life. I loved it. I loved getting stronger. I loved the little goals every day you were working towards. I loved the camaraderie with other people that were involved with it. And that really I started to see at 16 years old, like, wow, my body's changing. I'm becoming stronger and I feel less self-conscious about myself. So I would say that I have a love-hate relationship with food because I have a love-hate relationship with, my self-body image for sure. Would I love to be completely shredded and you could iron a shirt on my abs? Absolutely. Is that the case? No, it looks like I made my wife cinnamon rolls last weekend.
I wouldn't, you're hiding it very well.
Well, I do. I strategically choose my clothing to make sure I feel like I look like I wish I did.
Yeah, but it's okay because you have the right balance. You can't be too obsessed with just the outside, the shell that you're living in. You got to enjoy life as well, right?
Oh, I agree. There have been a few times where I really hit a extremely proud goal and how I felt and how I looked in that. And it was a full-time job and I was hungry a lot, Mitzi.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm totally okay with where I'm at, but I definitely, that is one of my biggest things still is I want to make sure I feel physically healthy because emotionally and mentally I feel so healthy. That's
Mhm.
like my last puzzle piece that I'm always working towards.
It's good to know that there's something that gets you a little,
Oh yeah. Oh, I mean, there's so
because
much,
that makes
right?
it, that's human. That makes you human. So I like knowing that. But I think we all struggle with that. A lot of us do. That's very
Yes.
relatable. And then when you were in school, because you're a teacher now, was there some person in your life that had a positive influence, or a particular story about a teacher, or even one that about a teacher who taught you what not to do as a
Oh my
teacher or as a grown up?
I mean, I could go on forever on so many great opportunities because of the adults in my life. But I think the most pivotal one, hands down, I love telling this too. I wanted to be a chef. So luckily, parents involved. I had a great guidance counselor. Well, get cooking, start working in restaurants, right? So at 15, started working at restaurants from 15 to 17 years old. 2 years, I worked in about 5 or 6 different restaurants, not just working, but cleaning the restaurant, cooking on the line. And my junior year, 17 years old, I realized, oh my gosh, this is not the career I want for my life. It just
Mm.
wasn't what I thought it was going to be. And I really started to dive in like, what is it about cooking that I love if I hate this as a job? And I realized I love the after effect of sitting with everybody and enjoying it and watching them enjoy it. And in a restaurant, I didn't realize until I did it, it's you don't get to see that because you're on to the next meal. And rightfully so. You've got a lot of hungry people, but I didn't find it rewarding and fulfilling. So lucky for me, I had a really great chemistry teacher my junior year. His name was Mr. B. It was his first year teaching, and I loved him because he was a non-traditional student and teacher. He actually did a different career, had a way wild career. I think he toured with a band and was a roadie and tried different things. And he realized that he wanted to go back. He really loved science and that he wanted to become a teacher. So he was a guy in, I don't know, late 20s, early 30s that just started. So I found him really different and unique and inspiring. And he led human first with love. You could tell he was there and excited to just know you for you. And I think everybody felt that. And because of that, first of all, I modeled myself after him as an educator because he had such an impact on me. But one of the biggest and influential things in my life was that I had this conversation with him that led me to become a teacher. I told him, "Hey, Mr. B, I just realized like my whole life I thought I wanted to cook and I don't like it. I have no idea what I'm going to do. I'm a junior. I thought I had my whole life planned out and now I have nothing. And I'm just, I'm really worried. I don't really know what to do." And luckily he knew me well. And he said, "Well, you seem to really like high school and being here. Would you say that's true?" Yeah, I said, "Absolutely. I love being here. I love seeing the different people. I like being around girls. I like the school spirit. I like learning." He said, "Okay, that's a good thing." He said, "And you seem to really like science. If I'm not wrong, you seem to do well in all your science classes." I said, "Oh, I love this. This chemistry stuff is really interesting to me. And I feel like it's pretty natural for me. I don't have to overly struggle with it and I'm enjoying it." He says, "Well, maybe you should be a science teacher. You could be in this environment your whole life if you wanted to." And it was like lightning.
Mm.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe I never thought of this. Yes, this is exactly what I should be doing. And then he said, "Who knows? Maybe we'll work together someday." That would be cool. And it changed my life. So at lunch, I went to my guidance counselor, said, "Miss Mulligan, I need to get myself on the path to being a teacher." And she was like, "Oh, that's such a great idea." She was again supportive. And from there, I got a teaching internship my senior year where you left and helped with the junior high class. And man, all of a sudden, like everything just fell in line. So once again, how lucky was I to have those adults in my life that knew me outside of my home, that just saw my energy and passions and like put that together and puzzle pieced it for me because I swear to you, Mitzi, I have no idea if I would have ever made that connection, even though it was so obvious.
Well, those experiences are meant to take us on the journey where we're supposed to go.
Mm.
So I have no doubt you would have ended up where you're meant to be anyway. But That's a great story. I love that. Mr. B.
Mr. B. Shout out to Mr. B. Life changer, lifesaver.
Where did you go to college?
I went to a place called Illinois State University. It's basically known for teaching. So it was a slam dunk for me. 1 in 4 teachers are from Illinois State University in the state of Illinois. So it's pretty known for its teaching school. And it also had a great chemistry program, which is what I was interested in. I knew I wanted to teach, but I'm also a risk analysis kind of guy. So at Illinois State, you can get your degree in chemistry and then also kind of like a minor, a teaching certificate. So I left Illinois State after 4 years with a degree in chemistry. So I could have worked in the lab, and then also with my secondary education license so that I could teach in high school. And that was really important to me, just to make sure not only did my degree have credibility, like, yeah, I have a legit degree, but also just in case, you never know, like maybe something doesn't work out with teaching. I was only 22 on my way out, 21, 22. So I just wanted that backup just in case. Luckily, I've never had to use it that way besides teaching, but it was a no-brainer for me to go to that school. And I had a wonderful time. Met my wife there my junior year of college and accidentally met her. And then I couldn't live without her. And then here we are, 15 in February, we were married 15 years and have 2 beautiful children, a beautiful life together. Again, just right place at the right time. Very lucky, very grateful.
Well, tell us the story. Tell us the story of how you met your wife.
Okay.
I love a great romantic story.
So ours is very unromantic to start with, which
Oh.
is the best. I worked in the science lab storeroom at ISU. So I had a friend, Kate, who I worked with, and I recently broke up with my girlfriend of years. We were together years, and we cared about each other deeply, but we just had such different paths and such different lifestyles that we were interested in. We kept fighting it and trying it, and it just wasn't working. So anyways, we officially put like the close on it. And I said to my friends, like, I don't want to date or talk to any women for like a whole semester. I just want to hang out with you guys, worry about myself, and not worry about relationships. And what happens a week later? My friend Kate says, I have this girl in my class, and she is one of the sweetest people I've ever met. And she said, I think you're one of the nicest, sweetest people I've ever met. I feel like you two should meet. And we were like cleaning dishes, like beakers. And I said, nope, don't want to meet any girls, but that's really nice of you. Thank you. She said, okay. And then a week later, she made my wife now come into the storeroom because Kate had a car and was going to give her a ride. And then Kate said, oh my gosh, Phil, this was the girl, Lindy, I was talking about. And so we just shook hands, and that was it. It was like, nice to meet you. Hi. And there was nothing, no connection, anything. But I recognized her. I started going to the local school church on Wednesday nights just for a little bit. For some reason, it was just calling to me to just get a little positive energy in my life. And I recognized her. She went to that church. So I said, oh, that's funny. Maybe that's a little sign or something. So I went the next evening or whatever and saw her there. And I said, hey, my name's Phil. We met through Kate. And anyways, we started talking, ended up hanging out that night till like 2 a.m., just hanging out. She actually broke all the rules of hanging out in college with a stranger. She walked with me alone in the quad. She came back to my place, my apartment with my friends, like super huge no-no you do in college with a stranger. But luckily she knew we felt each other were trusting in that. But so we became friends instantly. She was one of the happiest, kindest people, sincerest people I've ever met. And I thought, this is just a good person I should have in my life. And then like 2 weeks later, we just kept hanging out and talking. I felt like, I don't think I could ever live without this person in my life. And I didn't know if she was feeling that. So that's when I called her and said, hey, you want to hang out tonight? And she had to do some work stuff at school. So I said, well, I'm making an apple pie. Where you at? I'll bring you a slice. And she says, oh, I only like apple pie if it's warm and with ice cream. And I said, that's perfect because mine's right out of the oven and I got vanilla ice cream right here. So I brought her pie a la mode and I think that was it. She's like, oh man, I don't know if he's a nice guy, but at least I'll be fed my whole life. So I think that's what got her.
Yeah, for all of you people out there listening, take Phil's advice. That's a great little way of connecting. I would have loved that if somebody did that for me. I could see why she was hooked. Beautiful.
I do think there is a direct pathway for a lot of people from the stomach to the heart. So,
Of course there is. It's all connected, right?
yeah.
So I have to ask you, what is the story with your first tattoo? How did it all begin? Your journey with tattoos?
Yes. So I grew up loving tattoos. My grandfather, Alex, who I dearly, dearly loved, and he had two cool old school tattoos on his forearms from when he was in the service. One was a horseshoe that said cherry on it, and the other one was a heart that said mom. And I remember asking him, yeah, why did you get that? And he got the mom one because he was so afraid of his mother and what she was going to say. So he got mom on it to hopefully soften the blow. And I said, all right, a man who fears his mother. That's me too. Okay, I like that. And then years later, when I got older, he told me the story of his horseshoe cherry tattoo. He grew up in a very different time than us, Mitzi, but he grew up in the Polish neighborhood of Chicago, and they would have to go through different neighborhoods. And he had a whole wagon full of cherry soda, and the wagon wheel fell off, and the cherry soda fell over and broke all over the ground. And he was in a neighborhood that wasn't Polish. And they said, you dropped your soda, Cherry. And then they beat his ass. They beat him up. So his nickname became Cherry because he got beat up so bad from breaking cherry soda in the wrong neighborhood. So anyways, I just thought that was the most like insane and incredible story to commemorate. So anyways, I loved tattoos and I loved how they were bleached out and bleeding and old. And I know a lot of people don't think that's cool or attractive, but for some reason I was so drawn to it. So I said for my 18th birthday in Illinois, you have to be 18. I asked my parents, do you think you would be willing to, my dad, take me to get a tattoo? And, you know, they were like, well, what is it? Where are you going to put it? Can you see it? You know, and I wanted Chilly Willy the penguin. I know. I'm not a badass, Mitzi. I know. I love cartoons. I'm a child at heart. And I had this hat that had Chilly Willy on it that I loved. And so I got it on my back shoulder blade. And I'm sure my parents thought, well, he'll think that's dumb and never do that again, you know? And then every year I slowly started adding, and now for 22 years later, I'm just covered in them. But yeah, Chilly Willy the penguin was my first tattoo. I love cartoons. Penguin is my favorite animal. I'm a kid at heart. It just seemed like the right thing to do, Mitzi. Not exactly a badass story, though, is it?
I love that story. I think every story you tell makes me love you more and more. I think all the listeners are fully just all in right now. They're all in love with you.
Well, that's very sweet of you. Thank you. And I appreciate you not making fun of me for having a funny story, something I don't show very often, but my entire back now is covered in cartoons. And as my good friend Matt says, I look like a freaking walking coloring book.
But I think that kind of says something nice about you. It goes along with your personality. You're very colorful, very vibrant, and that's great. It's beautiful.
Thank you. And I must admit, it is nice when you're like swimming and a little kid is excited to see you and not afraid of you, but they're like, hey, look, Cookie Monster's on his back. And then the parents, instead of like, don't talk to him, they say, oh, well, ask the man, why does he have that? Because they're probably like, yeah, why does a 40-year-old man have that on his back anyways? So they're probably using the kid to get the info.
Do you have any tattoos gone wrong or any tattoos that you don't like?
This is a super common question, and I am so happy to say that I have no regrets yet. I mean, there's always a yet, right? I have my wife's name on me twice. Both times the artist said, are you sure about this? And I said, yeah, I am sure. And the first time I did it, I have her name carved in a tree with a little heart, hard to see. But he said, well, the good news is we could always fill that in if things go bad. I'm like, well, thank you for your for your lack of
in my
faith.
marriage.
But he's like, I'm just for your own good, man. I've seen a lot of these go wrong. It's nothing personal. It's just from personal experience. And then my other one, I have my kids' names and her name right on my heart and chest. And again, they're like, you sure you want kids' names are easy, but the wife's name too? You sure? You know? And I'm like, yes, I'm sure. Thank you.
I love tattoos. I only have 2 of them, and they are both kind of old and bleeding and looking old.
I
now,
love that.
so-
I love that though. It's like, I love when they start bleeding in that. It's like we've lived life. They're not fresh and new. They've experienced.
Yeah.
It's, I don't know. Not everybody feels that way though.
No, but I love that you're doing that for me. I feel like you just gave me a gift because I have the kanji symbol for love tattooed on my ankle.
Well, I love
It's
that.
kind of cliche, but I love it.
No,
And
all that matters is what it
old.
matters to you. That's all that matters.
That's right. I've just always felt like love is the most important thing, and that's why I got it. And so I love it, but it definitely looks old now. And I think to myself, oh, I don't think there's really much you can do with it once it starts to do that. Now the new ones are very fine line, they're very, and mine is not. Mine is definitely one of those like grandma tattoos, but I still love it. And so I love that you're talking about it in that way. And the idea that when we see people who have a lot of tattoos and we judge, we think maybe they're not approachable, or that, like you mentioned, the kids will feel comfortable coming to you. And a lot of times we'll see people and think, oh, we'll stay away from that person. I don't feel that way, but I think you're breaking a ceiling somehow with that. Like your role as a teacher and your role as this public figure and the speaking and the positivity work that you do, it just shows people that that's a myth,
Right. Oh, I agree. I think too, social media and television has done one of the good things about it is that it's opened people's minds, that you see so many creative, talented, successful, loving people. Some have them and some don't. And it really doesn't matter. It's just a form of art and expression. So yeah, I think that whole old school mentality of biker gang or prison inmate, I think I'd like to say that most people, I think, are past that now. Now, do I think there's still a lot of people who think that it's unprofessional for me to have my hands tattooed as an educator? I think that's absolutely true. And actually, I waited years. I wore long sleeves every day to work, tie, long sleeves. I never showed my tattoos ever until COVID happened. And after COVID happened and everything that went on, I think we all reanalyzed our lives a little bit. And I always wanted to do my hands and knuckles. And I knew that that was not considered super professional. But after COVID and going through online school and looking into, do I even have a purpose here anymore? Do I matter to the world, or do I need to find a new purpose? I also got into the mindset of, man, life is so short and precious. So one night I was sitting in my wife's office while she was working, and I was looking at my hands and I was afraid of her answer. I said, what do you think if I finally did my hands? I mean, I've wanted to for years. And she's like on the keyboard. She's like, honestly, I'm just surprised you haven't done it yet. And I'm like, oh, that's a better answer than absolutely not. My wife is a little annoyed by my tattoos, not her favorite thing about me, but I was shocked. I was like, oh, wow, I really thought you were going to say, absolutely not. Are you insane? That's going to look so unprofessional as a teacher, She's like, oh, I thought you would have done it by now. So I was like, okay, you know what? Life is short. I've been teaching for over 15 years at that point. I've established myself as a professional. I'm going to do it. And then I thought it was going to be a big deal when I went to work. Would I get called in? And no one even said anything. No one even cared or noticed. So it was great. It was great. I'm glad I did it. I love how my hands look like that. But yeah, I do think you're right. There are old social norms that I think are dramatically changing because our eyes are so opened because of the internet. We see so much more now.
Yeah. And I think it's really about the person you are. It's who you are on the inside. It's the work that you're doing. You're going in there and putting in 110% every day with those kids. And you're clearly more than capable to put yourself across as an expert in your field. it doesn't matter what the outside looks like. You're really giving me a lot of gifts in this conversation, because my daughter is 22 and she likes tattoos, and she has several of them, and she hides them from me now. Like and I know she's getting new ones all the time, and she's hiding them from me. And I feel bad about that, because I've told her, okay, I think you have enough tattoos now, let's just hold off for a little bit. Just give it, take a little time, try to be nice about it. But, she used to ask me, well, I want to get a tattoo. What should I get? And I used to sort of help her with that, but she's not asking me anymore, because I think I've made it clear that I don't want her to get any more. And I think she's beautiful and they look beautiful, but she uses it as a form of self-expression. She says, it makes me feel good to get these tattoos. I love them. So I have to change my way that I'm interacting with her on that, because I don't want it to be something that she and I have between us that feels bad. So thank you.
Well, yeah, I think too. Absolutely. I think too, the fact that you're aware of that it's a different vibe now and energy, and you're reflecting on that. And I think that's part of becoming an adult too, right? Is you make your own choices for what you feel is best for you, even when others don't fully agree with it. And I would be lying if I didn't say my parents would occasionally just say comments like, do you feel like you've got enough now? Are you gonna keep going? And then it started getting to the point where I just kind of left it out of conversation. And then we would be swimming, and all of a sudden they'd be like, oh my, you've had some work done since the last time we've swam, Oh yeah, I guess I have. I remember one time a guy who helped raise me down the street, I was cutting my parents' lawn. I was off for the summer. And so I stopped by and I would cut my dad's lawn every once in a while, just kind of to surprise him so he didn't have to worry about it. And I remember Bob said, Phil, what the hell are you doing with your body? And you know what I said? I was in a cocky mood. I said, well, Bob, I'm married to a successful woman. I have 2 healthy children. I have a great career that I give back to the world. I'm not on drugs, and I'm helping cut my dad's lawn. So I said, so if tattoos is the worst thing going on for me, I said, I think I'm doing pretty well. And you know what he said? Because he was a real kind of loud guy too. He said, touche, good point. And then he kept walking his dog. And I'm like, there you go, Bob. How about that?
I love it. All right. End of topic. I love it. I love everything you said. That was fantastic. Are you ever in a bad mood?
Absolutely. Yes, not often.
What does Phil look like when he's in a bad mood?
Pretty ugly, pretty bad. Yeah, when I get overstressed, I do get cranky and mean sometimes. So yeah, I'm not angry often, but when I do, it's usually angry out of fear, which I'm working on and learning from. So when I fear my kids are doing something that's going to be detrimental to their future, that I've been known to blow up and overreact, and I'm definitely working on that, because that's not helpful for anybody, right? So lucky for me, I have a really great schedule and routine in my life to get rid of those stressors. Exercise is a big one for me. Cooking is a huge calmer for me in that. I don't want to paint a picture that I'm walking around constantly angry and holding it in, but absolutely, I have bad cranky days, and I can be angry, and I can say things I don't mean sometimes. Absolutely. So I'm so far from perfection, that's for darn sure.
But you're probably able to catch it very quickly.
Yeah, I also have, my wife's my best partner and best friend. She can call it out real quick. She gives me a look that's like, hey, is this who you want to be right now? And then the shame comes in, and then the guilt. And then sometimes when you feel shame, you push harder as opposed to dial it back. And lucky for me, I've done all those personal development books, and I keep reading them, and I'm so much more self-aware than I was even 10 years ago. So I'd like to say they're less and less, but I think you'd have to interview my wife to know the actual truth.
I just love that, what you just said, that question of asking yourself, is this who you want to be right now? If we could all just realize when we're in those moments where we feel a little bit out of control, or we know we're afraid, or we get worried, in traffic or with somebody who's pushing your buttons,
Yeah.
to just be able to step back and ask yourself, is this, or who do I want to be right now? Who do I want to be?
Yeah. Well said. Yeah, we always want to be our best self, but I think our ego gets in the way sometimes. I know that's it for me, especially with respect and my own house for my children. They're it's natural for them to push the boundaries and learn, but sometimes there's the balance of I want to talk you through how this was inappropriate, your reaction, but the ego in me also wants to establish dominance, right? That animal in me wants to, I want to make sure they know that I own this house, and that is not the human that I want to give to the world, but that's still deep
Mhm.
inside of me, the animal that comes out sometimes. I think someone said it, there's a savage and a servant in you, right? And it's your job
Oh,
to control that. Could you be a savage if you needed to? Could you protect your family?
yeah.
But do you really need to use that savage very often? Or is knowing that you could be that enough and then be that servant to your family, to your world? And I loved hearing that. I'm like, yeah, because sometimes that savage comes out of us in the form of ego or whatever it is. But really, are we really serving ourselves and others better? So I thought that was a really good check for me.
Oh yeah, it really is. We all go through those moments, and we do need the balance. We need the yin and the yang. It's
Sure.
it's nature's way, right? It has to be there. But I do agree with you that there is a real need for more positivity in the world and more uplifting. But then there are the people on the other side who say, well, if you're just positive all the time and you're just repressing all that negativity, then that's toxic positivity.
Sure.
What do you think about that phrase or that idea
This
that
is actually
positivity
a
can be toxic?
common thing we get asked, myself and my co-speaker, Matt. Are you guys ever negative? And do you think that's healthy to be so positive? I think that's a very valid question. So I think my definition of positivity is that there's a lot of uncomfortable, unfortunate, and just bad situations that happen to all of us. And it's all in a different spectrum based off of your life. We all have different perspectives of what's bad, and we're all where we are. Try to meet everybody where they're at. We're all in different places. So I like to say that when those unfortunate things, those annoying things, those stress inducing things, those things that make you angry or you feel like they're unjust, that's a negative situation. But a positive person can say, this is reality. What is in my control that I can respond in a way to make the best possible outcome of a bad situation or an unfortunate situation? I would say that that's a positive human that says, absolutely, I feel this. I am upset. I am hurt. I am stressed. But now that I felt it, as a human in control of myself, what is my best possible response in order to not ignore reality, none of this Pollyanna crap, but to make the best possible outcome? And sometimes the best possible outcome still is awful or terrible. But case in point, my awesome dad is currently fighting leukemia. That is a horrible situation. And my sister and I, luckily, I have a wonderful sister. We're tag teaming, caretaking, getting him to the hospital and that. But that's a horrible situation for my dad. It's a horrible situation for my mother, for my sister, and me. I mean, our lives are all uprooted, right? Complaining and being angry about it isn't going to help anything, right? So we all said, okay, this is a tough situation, nothing we want. What's the thing we can do to make the best out of it? And we felt structure. Okay, then let's figure out how we're all going to help each other so that with many hands comes light work. I would say that that's a positive response to a really cruddy situation. I wouldn't say that's toxic. We're not walking around saying, well, dad doesn't have cancer, he's going to live forever. I think that's what people assume, right? Like, just try harder, dad, and you're going to beat it. It's like, well, there's a little more to it than that, but definitely give it your all. Positivity is about making the best possible outcome by controlling the controllables that you have to make it as good as possible. But in the end, still doesn't necessarily mean it's a great outcome.
Yeah, it's like that saying, just because it's difficult does not mean it's negative.
Yeah, great point. So good. Just because it's difficult doesn't mean it's negative.
Because I too believe that positivity is never toxic. I do not like that. That has become a buzzword in our society
It
because
has.
I do not believe that it is ever toxic, and that it doesn't mean that you're ignoring reality. I love that you said that. So that's perfect. You just did a great steel man for that argument. So thank you.
Thank you. My pleasure. Just wrote that down. Just because it's difficult doesn't mean it's negative. I like that a lot. That's one of my new mantras.
Yep. So you do a lot of really cool things for other people. You're very generous in your everyday life, in your role as a teacher, but you specifically do things that are really fun. Like I know you have on your website some examples of setting up a woman at a piano who serenaded people in a coffee shop to make their
Yeah.
day a little bit brighter. You did an experiment where you got a limo company on board and you went and picked up people at the bus stop and offered them a ride to their next destination in the limo. So, what is your favorite over the top thing to do for someone else that just makes their day a little bit more special?
Wow, that's a great question. I think for me, my favorite thing to do is to create something with my hands, like a cake, decorate it, and then deliver it to them with them not expecting it, just receiving it. My kids and I love to bake at home, and then we kind of make a big cake, divvy it up, and then we deliver it to our neighbors. And just the way people light up for some little surprise, I think is one of my absolute favorite things. And my heart like hurts in a good way when my kids now make something and say, "Oh, we'll have extra. We should deliver it to Gene and Dixie next door. They'll appreciate it." So it's like, all right, as a father, I won on that one. All right, they're givers. Like, yes, I love that question too, Mitzi, because I want to remind people that it doesn't take millions of dollars or millions of followers or television or anything viral to make a huge impact on a person's life. Just a nice, simple gesture can completely change the perspective or trajectory of their day, to remind them that there is tons of love wins in the end. There's tons of love out there, and that we can give it and we can receive it, and it doesn't cost money. It just takes time and intention. I think that's one of my favorite things.
I love that too. I think doing small things for people. I just did this the other day. My neighbor was driving by as I was trimming some roses from my rose bush, and she yelled out the window, "I love your roses. They're really looking beautiful." And I later on in the day took her a bunch of roses, and just noticing things like that, opportunities to do that, and not telling anyone about it. I did tell people about that one only as an example, but I
Right.
think doing things like that and including that, giving to others gives to you, helping others helps you.
So much. And I love that. I remember you did that reel where you explained that. And you know what? That inspires me, right? So, Mitzi, I know what you say, like, we don't need to promote all of it that we do,
Yeah.
but if we don't tell people, then they might not think of it. Just like if
True.
someone didn't tell me maybe I should be a teacher, maybe I didn't think
Mhm.
of it. So that was kind of our whole mentality with our pay it forward videos for Matt and I through M&P. What can we do that can create a little 2-minute short video on YouTube? No big deal. But if a couple people see that and think, "Oh, wow, that was a great idea. I should pay it forward." Like, what a win. What a win to just promote that kind of positive energy. So when
Right.
you told that story, that energized me to think, okay, what can I do today that's in my control to just make someone's day a little bit brighter, even if it is just a little conversation and smile at the grocery store. We
Yeah.
all have that in our power. So I love that you shared that. I
Oh,
think more people should share that.
I think I'm thinking more of the ones where you see people doing it out of their ego and it doesn't feel as authentic. Then it just doesn't feel the same. But I love what you're saying. That's absolutely right. It is an inspiration. And you've given me so many interesting perspectives and like new ways to look at things.
I don't know if you should trust me, though. I do have a penguin, a
You
cartoon
do have
penguin on
a
my back.
chilly Willy. All right. So I know as a teacher, you probably carry a bag or a backpack. What
Yeah.
is something unique that we might find in your backpack?
Unique in my backpack. Oh, man. That's a really good question. Everything's changed so much now with my bag because I just have my laptop. Let's see. I feel bad. I think I'm going to strike out on this one. I
Oh
don't have.
no, Look, well, the reason I'm asking this question is I saw an example of this where a guy had his backpack, and in the bottom of his backpack was an old candy wrapper. And
Oh,
he pulled it out and said, the reason I keep this old candy wrapper is because it reminds me of this experience I had with this guy. We were flying in a plane and he reached over and he said, would you like one of these candies? And I took it from him. And it was a pretty extraordinary experience where they were flying over mountains, and
yes.
it reminded him of that experience. So that's kind of where I'm going. Like, is there anything
Yeah.
in there that's old or a piece of something you keep for sentimental reasons or?
Yeah, you are a true teacher. See, you gave me an example and then that allowed me to understand what we were looking for. I'm like, I don't know, I got pens in there probably. All right, so I always have my lanyard for work in there, but on my lanyard, I have a quarter that has a hole drilled in it. And that was from my grandfather Alex, who my son is named after, and I idolized him. And he he did that for me. He did not want me to be a teacher. He said I was going to be broke and poor and I should go into computers. I never listened to him and that kind of life stuff, but he actually was really proud of me, but he was really tough on me in a loving way. But he drilled a hole in the quarter and put it on a keychain. And he said, here, now you'll never be broke. He said, I'll at least always have a quarter on me. So I always have that on my lanyard and on my keys. And I think of that when I see him. Sometimes you'll thumb through your keys and you'll hold it and it'll remind me of him. So I'm glad you gave me an example.
There you
Thank
go.
you.
Yep.
It was good to remind me of that too. Sometimes we have those things and we forget to savor them again. Once you put that in your mind, now I'm going to notice it like 30 times today.
And then it'll bring that back to mind. I love
Yeah.
that.
Thank you for the reminder.
Oh, you're welcome. So you are so generous with other people all the time. What is the best thing that people can do for you? How do you receive love the best?
Oh man, that's a really great question. I'd take anything. I love attention, Mitzi. I think just kind conversation is one of my absolute favorite things. I was telling Lindy, my wife, when I retire from teaching one day, I wonder if I should be like what is it? What are they called? Job hunters or that? I just love
Oh,
meeting people and networking. So the thing that fills me up is literally a conversation and learning about someone new. I think that is one of the things that people can give me their time, and it just fills me up. Every person we meet knows something that we don't know. I love learning from others. I love learning from their stories and experiences. And I think, Mitzi, that's probably why you love doing this podcast, right? You
mhm.
enjoy hearing other people's perspectives. So I'm
Yep.
fully in alignment with you. So yeah, that's probably it. Your time and attention, because I like that. I like that attention. Just a little bit, I think, is one of the things that fills me up the most. Otherwise, I'm so lucky. I've got everything I need. I need so little, just so overwhelmingly lucky. So that's it.
That's beautiful. What do you think is the best thing that ever came from talking to a stranger?
Gosh, probably getting married,
Oh, yeah.
finding my soulmate and best friend, I would say. And then, yeah, business wise, Matt and I, my co-speaker for M&P, we went to this Illinois Teen Institute and we were just doing a little like 15-minute breakout session trying to get our name out. They were doing this big talent show and we walk in, no one knows us, and we sit behind this one guy. He's got his arm up on the chair and he looks behind him. And I think he kind of thought, who are these two dudes? They don't belong here. He asked us some questions and then he actually really liked our energy and genuine sincerity and realized that we were there to present tomorrow, but we were there early to just check out the scene and network. And
Mhm.
anyways, this guy, we now call him Uncle Ron Jacobison, just a random guy we met, ended up being really big in the prevention area and for people who needed speakers. And he has introduced us to so many people that without sitting behind him and him kind of giving us a hard time in a friendly way, like, who are you guys? And we ended up, our responses back, kind of jabbing back. We instantly connected. I told him we went skydiving. I made him come skydiving with me on his 60th birthday because he wanted to do it. And I said, we got to do it. I want to do it. Now you've got to come. And he got really upset because we paid for him to go. And he's like, no, 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 no. And I told him, Ron, you have no idea the thousands of dollars you have created in wealth for Matt and I. The people, I'm getting a little choked up, like the
Oh,
people you have introduced us to that have changed our lives so that we can give our message. The lowest form of gratitude I can do is buy you a jump out of a skydive. And he's like, all right, stop getting emotional. Fine, I'll let you pay, but it's true. Like the people you meet and you don't even realize the trajectory they can put you on. It's really overwhelming.
It is overwhelming. You got to keep the door open. It's just astounding how big the world really is. And just knowing that those opportunities are right there in front of you, you just have to have an open mind, an open heart, and leave the door to your soul open for those experiences. And they are right there. They're all around you all the time. They will just come in, and it's unbelievable.
Agreed. Just stay open, lead with love. And even if nothing comes of it, there's nothing wrong with that either. It doesn't have to be transactional, right? It could just be. And I heard on another networking call I had, it was really nice. Dave Meltzer, who's a really big guy in the social media scene, I've just recently, but he said, if you deny someone giving to you, remember, like you're denying them the joy of giving. Like we all love to give. So if you can't receive, then you're blocking them from that joy. So don't remember that.
Right.
I love that, because I wonder if I am a blocker sometimes. And I think that I feel bad then that I've robbed them of that experience that they wanted to give, so that really shifted my perspective. I like that.
I think people who are extreme givers, very generous people like you, do have to remember that balance, that you've got to have the ability to receive.
Yes. 100%. And I try to reflect back when I think of that. I wonder how many times I've really hurt people unintentionally from being stubborn, just because I'm not used to receiving or whatever it is. I don't know what the deal is. Maybe it's my ego. I don't know, but I'm definitely diving into that, because I learned from the great group that you and I met through, Mitzi, like people say received. I love that terminology. When someone compliments you, instead of saying, no, Mitzi, I'm a hot mess, and literally degrading what you just said, that you were vulnerable enough to share. Instead, I just said, fully received. Thank you. I feel so good to validate you. I've heard you. I feel it. I appreciate it. And I don't feel weird anymore saying it. I love that. That's such a nice twist to the, stop it, I look terrible today,
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting way of helping people to overcome self-deprecation. Because if you think of it, that your self-deprecation is actually not hurting physically, but you're not being able to receive something, it puts up a block, and it does stop the flow of energy, and it does, in a way, hurt the other person.
Yeah, no, I agree. They're giving and you're not willing to receive it, then that sends an energy back to those people.
That's right.
One of the things we love to do, Matt and I, we bring up random people from the audience and we call it the compliment gauntlet. 3 people sit down, total strangers, and then we bring 3 people up, and the 3 people sitting down have to pay them a genuine, sincere compliment. And we tell them, you have to look in their eyes. And the only thing the people can do standing there receiving the compliment is look back in their eyes and say, thank you. We tell them, that's it. You don't have to talk. You can't talk any more, any less. You can't deny it. You only can say thank you. And we talk about why is that difficult sometimes. And then kids say, well, maybe I look arrogant or cocky, like, yeah, I know I look good, or I know this. But I said, but we need to practice having the confidence to just receive that. And also having the confidence to practice giving compliments and not being afraid of rejection. So we love doing that. And that hits right on exactly what you said. We're trying to help people be more confident and open so that they can give and receive.
The idea that it takes confidence to receive a is pretty transformational. That gets me thinking.
That's our main message as M&P presentations. We try to build self-confidence, and from there, we feel when you're confident, you're willing to have more humility with yourself to say, is this my ego getting in the way? Also, when you're confident, you're more open to those new ideas. Like you said, your heart is more open and you meet more new people. You're willing to take risks and change your trajectory of your life, but it all stems with, do you trust yourself? Do you have the confidence in yourself and know who you really are?
Yeah.
And that you have the best intentions, even if other people may accidentally misinterpret you.
Everything really always comes back to the self. And I love that you're building that self-confidence, enabling self-discovery, empowering people to touch with their true selves. When you meet someone for the first time, what is one of your favorite questions to ask them besides the old standard, what do you do?
That's a really great question. And something that I've been learning, because I love my Instagram algorithm now. It's like figured me out on my personal development in that. So I get a lot of good ideas, but I've found that I'm great at small talk, but I have pretty boring regular starter questions. I had someone ask me, he said, I'm going to do this summer. Everyone new I meet, I'm going to say, what's your biggest goal for this summer? And I said, that's great. I don't know if I have an answer for that. For me, I said, but I love that over how are you doing? As far as a sentence starter and that, I don't really have a good one. I need to work on that for sure more. I think something that I like to ask my kids is, what is something happened today that you're grateful for? But I don't know. Would a stranger be comfortable telling me that?
I think it would be a welcome surprise to have someone say something like that.
Right.
I've been trying to put together a nice list and I haven't come up with a lot of good ones yet, but I love the idea of coming up with alternatives that are more unique and that kind of get right to the heart. Because for me, small talk is sometimes inauthentic and I would rather just get right to, get right down in there.
Yeah, I get that.
Sometimes, but people do, not everyone is comfortable with that. I like the question, tell me one of your dreams.
That's a good one. Again, a vulnerable answer for some
What's
people.
something you've always wanted to do? That kind of thing. It gets people thinking about that you're interested in what's out there for their highest good. I think it's interesting to think of like things like that. Things that are going to right off the bat set somebody up. Because when you ask somebody, what do they do? It sets them up right away on the defensive. I don't like that. And then when you think about a way of asking them a question that immediately puts them in a higher vibe. So I'm working on a list. Maybe we'll come up with a good list of
I like that. That sounds like a good
questions.
chat GPT question. Like, give me 20 non-traditional ice-breaking stranger questions for deep thought. And then it'll spit out like 25 of them for you.
I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that today. We'll see what comes up.
I love it.
What are you reading right now?
Right now, I am reading a book called Nudge. I'm listening to on audio. It's about how social psychology, helping humans make decisions. I find it very fascinating on what has worked and what hasn't with the government, with institutions, etc. So I'm listening to that one. And then I'm listening to, and forgive me, I forgot the name of it. It's David Goggins' second book after Can't Hurt Me. My co-speaker, Matt, is like an ultra marathon runner, is fully inspired by the guy. So he gave me that to borrow. So I'm 3/4 of the way done with that one, but that is very inspiring. The gentleman has a very different life point of view than me, but I do find it super interesting and inspiring in some ways. So I'm liking it.
Yeah, he's interesting. I've never read anything from his books, but I do follow him and he definitely inspires.
Yeah, he gives energy.
He scares me a little bit, but he inspires.
Yes. He says a lot in his book. Like, he's not expecting people to push themselves like he is. That's just his thing. He always says he wants to be known as the hardest mother effer on the planet. Yeah. Like, that's his vibe. That's his thing. And I think he's pretty darn close. But he says from what you can take is his message is always, you can always do more than your brain thinks you can. You always can do more. I like that message.
Yeah, you can. I think if you're climbing the ladder, you can usually climb one more rung. You can always eke out one more step.
I love that. I heard a speaker a couple of weeks ago. She had everyone in the audience stand up. She said, all right, everyone stand up tall. So we stood up tall. Then she says, okay, now stand up even taller. So everybody and she's all right, one more time, get even taller. And then she's like, why, when I first asked you to stand up tall, didn't you stand your tallest? And then people talked. And then she said, because you can always stand a little bit taller if you want it. And I thought that was a really great, physical metaphor. Yeah. I love that. And I think that's the same kind of information. We can always give a little bit more if we really want to. It's our choice though.
That's right. What are you learning right now that's new?
Yeah, I am finishing up sad. I'm finishing up. I've been taking a 16-week virtual class on positive education certification. So it's
Ooh,
positive psychology.
okay.
And Wednesday was my 15th week. So I only have one more class, but I have been loving it. I became obsessed with positive psychology. I read a Sean Acor book about 5, 6 years ago. And I just thought, what is this field? It's everything I fully believe in. And I feel like a lot that I naturally do. And I never had a science backing on why it felt good and why I felt like it helped me be successful. So
Mhm.
all of a sudden, I found the science connecting with what a lot of us call the woo woo, right? Or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think I love when the things that I feel and believe get backed up by science. Positive psychology is my obsession. And I've been learning so much. Lately, I've been talking about savoring a lot because my last couple
Mm,
classes have been diving into that and the physical body responses. And it's been such a great experience.
I love that. There's so much research on the connection between the brain and the heart and the central nervous system.
Yes.
There's a lot there. Since we're on the Blessings podcast, let's talk about your blessings and your lessons. So tell
Okay.
me what you think are the biggest blessings of your life.
I mean, hands down, my children and wife, I'd say my family is the biggest blessing that I feel a sense of awe, appreciation, overwhelmingly good feelings that kind of rush over me in different moments. So, hands down, I would say that is. And because of that, I think it's a blessing because it makes me want to be the best possible human I can be to not only support them and love them but also to show my children that it's possible to achieve, to take risks, to be good, to be loving. I want to be as good of a role model as I possibly can be. I think that is the biggest blessing in my life for sure. And then the other question is the biggest lesson.
Yes, the biggest lesson or lessons in your life.
I would say that being and again, oh gosh, don't all these answers sound cliche, Mitzi, but they're cliche because they're true, right?
The
I
reason
would
why.
say being your unapologetically authentic self serves you well in the grand scheme of things. Sometimes your authentic self won't fit well with other people and it will cause friction. Absolutely. But in the end, you being true to yourself, you being your real authentic self, as long as your authentic self is like or like healthy and nice, right? I think that it will create opportunities for you. It will attract the right people to you. It will allow you to fill yourself up to feel fulfilled and not in feeling of lack. And from there, I think you can lay down at night feeling like you gave it your best, you're respected and valued by the people that are important to you, and you're only going to do better tomorrow.
That's so true. Sometimes it's hard when you're doing that and things fall away,
Yeah.
but you have to trust that that is happening for your very best.
And you reach a point in your life, I think everybody does it different, but where you start realizing that, oh man, I can make decisions solely for myself. And I don't need the validation of anyone else to make that decision. Now, I say that with an asterisk because I am a team member, my wife, so I can't make huge decisions without her blessing either. But
Yeah.
but you know what I mean? I feel
Yeah.
like your whole life growing up in school, you were told what to do. I was obedient, right? I like that structure. But then all of a sudden you wake up and you think, holy smokes, I'm in charge. I can do whatever I want. That's a beautiful freedom, but also empowering that I can do this because I trust and believe in myself, even if others don't necessarily feel that way.
By developing yourself, you affect the world in a beautiful and positive way. And it's not possible to do that. It's not possible to make change. It's not possible to make connection and to improve the lives and elevate the consciousness if you're not okay in yourself, or at least in touch with yourself, knowing the parts that are okay and the parts that need work.
That's a good
Yeah.
point too, right? If you don't know your authentic self,
Yeah.
and I think we get a lot of people who feel a lot of friction in their life. They don't quite know where they belong and fit because they haven't taken the time to figure out, right? What is
Yeah.
it that fills me up, that gives me purpose, but also allows me to live comfortably so I'm not overwhelmingly struggling. I was just very lucky that I was given a path. I was born into a path that allowed me to make that way more streamlined than some people get.
Mhm.
I got a way better crack at it than a lot of people
Yeah.
will do. So I make sure I try
Yeah.
to be grateful for that.
I think that's why I love doing this work with life stories, because the people who have had a lot of good fortune in their past don't have as much work to do, maybe,
Right.
as somebody who doesn't have the same setup or the same foundation. And that's okay, but it's important to take a look at it, because otherwise you lose out on that connection with yourself. And you have to be able to see it to understand it in order to be able to transform it.
Yeah. And I think when you're in alignment with yourself and you're enjoying what you do, I think people can feel it. And
Mhm.
because of that, it feels organic, it feels good, it feels attractive. I think that's why the last 10 years, my co-speaker and I have been so successful speaking, because when we are up there, I mean, we are having such a good time. We are laughing, we are connecting. We do it selfishly just as much as we do it for the impact. We love doing it. It's such a good feeling to feel like you're making an impact and with your best bud and
Mhm.
cracking jokes. That's where I'm supposed to be. And then when I'm with my students in the classroom and we're in between doing an assignment and taking notes, and there's those connections there where they're joking with me and I feel like they're poking at me like I'm a family member. That's where I find the most joy. I'm just connecting with humans and they know if you need something, I'm here, not just for chemistry help, but I mean for
Yeah.
anything. I'm here. And if I can't help you, I will find someone who can support you. And I would like to think that majority of my students know that they can come vulnerable, hands open, hands out, and I would be there to carry them to wherever the next little place is that they need. Yeah, I
Mhm.
hope, and just like you, Mitzi, like you said, leading with love.
Leading with love. I think it's really interesting and telling that you are a chemistry teacher, because the idea of magnetism and humans that connect and are attracted to one another in that way, that is how we grow the consciousness through that. And you are literally a master of chemistry, of human chemistry.
Thank you. Fully received. I love people.
You do. That comes through, it comes across for sure. All right,
Thank you.
last question. What's the most important thing? First thing comes to your mind.
Oh, family.
Yeah. Aw. Thank you so much, Phil. Your light shines like a beacon. I mean, it's just wonderful. This has been the absolute best way I could have ever wanted to start my day. I'm super grateful to have you and your energy in my space this morning. And thank you again for everything.
Fully received. The pleasure and honor is all mine. I'm honored you offered for me to be able to share some of my thoughts and stories, and I fully believe in what you do. So thank you for the opportunity, and I'm always cheering you on. I know you lead with love, and I support humans like you.
So great. Thank you.